Welcome to the Backrooms world. World. It's called the Back World. It's not a ripoff. See this place? In the Backrooms, it's called Level 0, the Habitable Zone. In my game, it's called the Yellow Hallways.
I don't know.
Okay, well at least I've got a really unique art style, right? So, the Backrooms. 50.2 miles of existential madness. Navigation is tough, hallways are confusing, and resources are scarce. Don't forget your nutter butter and almond water. While exploring, you may find some very scary monsters. I mean, the only thing interesting about the Backrooms is the monsters anyways. Personally, my favorite level is the negative 100,052. Yeah, and there's evil chunky dolls on it, so it's good.
Actually, the true Backrooms is about the, walking through the hallways and entities suck. They suck so much. They suck so much.
I wish we could go back to the entities and
I know this.
I could drop ties in this bitch, drop like flies in this bitch. I cut ties in this bitch, I'll cut ties.
What was this video about again? Oh yeah, I'm making a video game. So a few years ago I was getting into game development, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I ended up going with Unity because I didn't know if I wanted to do 2D or 3D or 4D or 5D or 60 or 70.
Yeah.
So I had to learn everything from scratch on my own with no education because I'm just, you just got that brain, boy. I just got that brain, boy. I ended up doing a bunch of tutorials from this company called GameDev.tv. After doing those tutorials, I had to figure out what type of game do I actually want to make, because I'm not going to be like everybody else where I'm just going to work on a bunch of different projects over and over and over and never release a commercial game. I was just like, I'm going to go straight into my first commercial game. I don't care how bad it's going to be. I love RPGs, and I was like, should I make an RPG? I don't know. It's pretty high scope to make an RPG as one person, so it's probably a bad idea. But screw it! I'm gonna do it! Because I don't care if I overscope and it takes 4 years to make my game. So I was coming up with some ideas. I was like, maybe I can do like futuristic sci-fi fantasy, like D&D in space or something. And then I was like, maybe that's gonna need 150 employees. So I'll figure out something more simple.
And then I saw the Backrooms.
I saw a bunch of spooky videos. I saw a bunch of spooky pictures. I saw a bunch of spooky freaking little guys. And I was like, this is pretty interesting. I love the idea of like the liminal spaces and kind of the creepy monsters, but also like there's a lot of downtime where you don't know what's gonna happen. It's like high pressure, creepy. And I was like, okay, there's clearly going to be money to make here. And you know, I love that money, right? I'm all about that money. I'm all about that bread. I was like, okay, there's going to be a huge surplus of games because everybody's going to jump on this bandwagon. And I know all the games are either going to be walking sims or horror games where you just get jump scared. And I don't want to make a game like that. So, what if I make a Backrooms RPG instead? Nah, that idea is stupid. It's not like there's any popular horror RPGs right now in 2020. Well, it does turn out there's actually one popular horror RPG that I know about, and it's called Fear and Hunger. So that lays a pretty good base for my idea in the first place. Although I didn't really end up making the game a lot like Fear and Hunger, it made me optimistic that there were people out there that wanted a horror RPG. So I was like, okay, there's a clear niche with an actual fan base ready to go. They're probably hungry for another game that's even a little bit similar. So I've got an idea here. I've got a good idea here. And there's also a boy. But that's a baby game. That's a game for babies. I'm making a real man's game like Ghouls and Ghosts. See this game? It's so good. But now that I had figured out what type of game I wanted to make, I needed to figure out how it was going to look. As much as I would have loved to make a 3D game or a really highly detailed 2D illustrated game, it was just too big and too much scope and too difficult for me to do on my own. Or even if I got an artist, it would be too expensive. So I settled on I was going to do pixel art 100%, but I needed to figure out the style of pixel art. And I was like, what type of pixel art games do I like that are also RPGs? There's Mori, there's Sans Undermath, there's Lisa the Joyman,
There's, Yume Nikki.
And I'm sure there's some other ones that,
Yeah.
So I was like, screw it. I'm gonna go back to the frickin' roots of all video games. The original game that started it all. Earthbound. Before Pong, before Donkey Kong Country, before The Legend of Zelda, Earthbound was the first video game, and I was gonna use that art style and modernize it, of course.
Indie RPG that's about depression and inspired by Earthbound alert.
Honestly, can we just hunt down whoever originally said this? Like, can you even name 2 in the comments? I bet you can. But for real, this game is not about depression. I think. Maybe. It might be about depression. Actually, I think the main characters are gonna die at the end if you don't collect the 1,000 gray keys scattered across the world, so watch out for that one. So here you can see some of the original art from Earthbound. The world, the enemies, the combat screen, the UI, etc. And here you can see the art that I went with originally for the game that I'm making, the back world. And it didn't look amazing, it wasn't terrible, but it was the first attempt, so I was still figuring everything out. I did end up hiring an artist that was with my budget range, and they started making some awesome stuff. Now a couple years later, both of us have improved our pixel art quite a bit, and I think it looks awesome. Honestly, I think it ended up being more inspired by Mother 3, but everybody references Earthbound, so I just say it's inspired by Earthbound. And on top of that, I'm going through and improving all the character designs of the major characters at this point. But enough about the graphics.
That's really what this is all about. And
let's start talking about the gameplay, because I know your attention span is starting to hit its limit. I mean, we're like at 7 minutes right now. The game combines various turn-based RPG, light action, collectible, horror, survival horror. It's got a lot of stuff going on, if I'm being honest. There's 2 main things about the gameplay that's a little different. Number 1, in this game, because it is a horror game, enemies are an obstacle. You don't actually want to fight them. It's not like other RPGs where you grind enemies for XP and you get really strong from fighting them. No, in this game they're an obstacle and you want to avoid them as much as possible. You get stronger from collecting XP by exploring and collecting in the world. And you also get stronger by finding items, which give you unique abilities in combat and passives in combat, which really make the difference. Number 2, you are not safe when you're out of the combat screen. In other RPGs, it's pretty much like if you're out of the combat screen, you're just walking around and then an enemy will run into you and then you fight them. But in this game, there are many different things that can hurt you. Enemies will run into you. They will also ambush you, such as coming out of a wall or cracks in the ground, and that'll hurt you. Or enemies will shoot projectiles at you, which will do damage. Or enemies will lay traps, which will stun you and deal damage. There's lots of different ways that they try to get to you and to hurt you. The good thing is that you'll unlock a lot of abilities that'll let you fight back or escape. You can attack enemies to deal damage to them when you enter combat. You'll unlock a power attack, which deals even more damage. You'll unlock a stealth ability, which lets you escape. As you unlock more abilities, it'll help you explore even more areas. For example, later on you'll be able to unlock a hoverboard, which means you can hover over many different gaps. Now for the last subject, the story. How's the story gonna work? Am I doing the lore from the wiki or what? No, I'm doing my own thing. I'm kind of just taking like the Backrooms ideas and the entities and kind of taking them and putting my own spin on them and working it into a story that I want to tell. The story will involve you falling into the back world, and you'll kind of need to explore and use it to achieve certain things in the story. On top of exploring the back world, you'll also explore your town and other different dimensions that are not necessarily part of the back world. How they all connect will, I don't want to spoil it, but it's a little interesting. So that's about everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. If the game looks interesting to you, please wishlist it on Steam. There will be a link in the description. Thank you.